Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio. And today, the Middle East looks like it's on the edge of war again, this time between Israel and Iran. And it looks like we are closer to peace between Ukraine and Russia. And Doge continues its rampage through the federal government, bringing joy pretty much to everybody involved. Here at Patriot Radio, we want to bring you information before everybody else, and we want to make sure that you and your family are prepared for the times that are ahead and the times that are already upon us. So follow us on Telegram at patriotradio.us/Telegram for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news. And also during this time, there should be no fear. But if you are feeling fear, maybe you need some prayer. So please send us a prayer request. We have a team standing by to pray with you for whatever your prayer need is. And you can send that at any time, patriotradio.us/prayer. That brings us now to your wisdom from the word for today. And when I see this, I get encouraged, but because I want you to listen to the import of the words. I think sometimes we read the scripture, we skip over a lot of things that really are life-changing and impactful. And this is actually from the book of Philemon, which you may never have heard of, but it is in the New Testament. Verse 6, "And I pray that the fellowship of your faith may become effective." Well, then that would beg the question, how? Well, he answers, "Through the knowledge of every good thing which is in you for Christ's sake," or for the sake of Christ. We already have every good thing inside of us? Yes, we have every good thing inside of us that we will ever need. Jesus Christ is not lost in the woods somewhere. He is right here. And for those that are unbelievers, he's just waiting for you to turn around, and he is standing right there. So for us, taking this scripture and applying it, tonight, take an opportunity with your family and write down every good thing from God that is already inside of you. And your prayers tonight will be that it be released. Every good thing, revival, reformation, every good thing for your community, every good thing for your family, every good thing for your walk, your purpose, your destiny, every good thing. And as you are able to release these things, see how your life begins to change. And that brings us now to your daily intelligence brief, coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
Elon Musk has deployed Starlink to upgrade FAA National Aerospace System. The Starlink system already blankets the Earth with capabilities for high-speed cellular and data transmission. But now Musk wants to take over and control the national airspace over America. Could that bring some questions? And obviously, there needs to be oversight here. But I think people are missing what's going on in the respect of cell phones. You literally are not going to have satellite phones much longer. T-Mobile has partnered with Starlink so that a regular cell phone can be a sat phone anywhere in the world with full service, even if you're in the mountains. That is going to change everything. Because then the question becomes, how secure truly is it? What about in emergencies? Well, Starlink is already being used. And some people are saying, well, it's the end of ham radio. It is not. Because satellites can be taken out. And in fact, it is the strategy of the former Soviet Union and China to take satellites out in the event of war. But we need to start thinking about the implications of these technologies. What if it controls everything? Single point of failure is always the worst option. Decentralization is always the best option. And in one sense, Starlink is decentralized, and in another sense, it's not. So for all of those entrepreneurs and thinkers out there, I hope that spurs some ideas for what to do in the future to protect against all of our communications being used against us as part of activity-based intelligence and this marketing scheme to have the digital self with thousands of data points on every single person so they know you better than you know yourself. What I suspect is the ideas are going to gravitate back toward primitive methods of communication, as they very well should. And that brings us now to the China front. The media recently reported that Chinese regime People's Liberation Army is building the world's biggest military base underground in possible preparation for a conflict. Not possible. They're signaling what they want to do. In addition to that, hackers stole 1.4 billion with a B Ethereum tokens on Sunday in the largest ever known heist of any kind by far. The previous record was 650 million. And interestingly enough, the haul of 1.4 billion is exactly what Jane's estimates North Korea's total annual defense budget is. And so the prevailing wisdom is that the hacking group Lazarus, which is linked to North Korea, is who is behind it. One of the vulnerabilities of cryptocurrency. Again, for those entrepreneurs out there, how do we protect against that? U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio exempts Taiwan and Philippines security programs from aid freeze. The exemption covers $870 million for Taiwan and $336 million for the Philippines. The Secretary approved those exemptions to send a strong message for deterrence against Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. Let's stop calling it the South China Sea. Can we do that? Let's call it something else. The Northern Philippine Sea? I don't know. We got to figure something out there. China's growing grip on South Africa through debt traps and strategic alliances. Beijing's influence is deepening. Could South Africa be surrendering its sovereignty to China by rising power? And this is exactly what's happening. Most people don't understand that the ANC, Nelson Mandela, etc., were communists. They were actual communists. And, of course, they're going to be under the gravity of China because communists come together. But it raises a few questions about the rest of Africa. Now you have some comments from certain elements in the DR Congo to trade mineral rights for security with the United States. And what we're seeing, again, is a polarization of the world similar to the Cold War. Chinese military has started live fire exercises in the Gulf of Tonkin. Yeah, the same Gulf of Tonkin that started the Vietnam War. After Vietnam announced a new line marking its territorial claims in the body of water 4 days ago, so the Chinese are challenging that. This comes on the heels of an exercise right off of New Zealand. And right after the Cook Islands have somehow struck an agreement with China, even though they can't really do that without authorization. So, also an undersea telecommunications cable between Taiwan and its Kinmen Island near China has been destroyed. Taiwan's Coast Guard detained the crew of the Chinese vessel Hong Tai after the cable was destroyed. Now, here's a map very quickly. Now, there's actually more than this. We put that map back up there. There's more than this as far as cables are concerned. But this is the general space of cables around Taiwan. Now, there's some that are not on this map that are to the south. But these are the ones that are pretty strategic. So the fact that the Taiwanese detained Chinese crew, again, more and more of a flashpoint around Taiwan. Pete Hegseth, quote, "It is urgent that the Trump administration build up the Navy," end quote. Do you think? Our shipbuilding capacity is nowhere near what China's is, but it should be. So I expect in the next 2 years, particularly, there will be a massive ramp up of shipbuilding for the United States and the refurbishment of some of our old ports and dry docks. Which brings us to an interesting case. Remember we talked about just a few moments ago the influence of China in Africa. A mysterious disease in Congo kills at least 53 within days. Now, this is something I've always kept my eye on after reading The Hot Zone. I think the author is Richard Preston, if I recall correctly, regarding the weaponization of diseases, in particular the focus on Marburg and Ebola. This is interesting that they did not categorize it. They didn't say what the disease was. But killing 53 people within days should raise a red flag. Is something else being unleashed on the world? That brings us now to the Middle East front. Israeli airstrikes are hitting southern Syria as Defense Minister Israel Katz announces a new approach banning Syrian government forces and terrorist organizations from establishing military positions in southern Syria. So this is Israel flexing its muscles. It is not going to move off of the Golan Heights or Mount Hermon, and is signaling to the Druze population a closer relationship and perhaps even annexation. According to Egyptian media, Israel has agreed to release over 600 Palestinian prisoners, originally set for last Saturday. Netanyahu postponed it. Now the release is expected to take place on Thursday under Egyptian supervision, with 602 Palestinians, along with additional women and children that are set to be freed. Obviously, the Egyptians are being a part of that because the Palestinians parading bodies enraged the Israelis, as it should have. Israeli ground forces have launched raids into provinces of southern Syria to destroy Syrian military equipment. Israeli airstrikes are also hitting those same targets. And according to this Syrian Druze, Israel has launched a pilot program allowing Syrian Druze to work in Israeli towns for $100 a day. So this is the attempt, I think, to create a relational dynamic in southern Syria connected with Israel. And looks like Israel is moving toward annexation of some of these territories, and clearly indefinite, as they have said, occupation of those lands. Videos showing intense ongoing clashes between Iranian security forces and armed individuals in a residential area in Chabahar City. What we're seeing right now looks to be a destabilization of the Iranian regime. I suspect that that's not without some foreign help, and it does look like the Iranian regime understands it's in a very precarious position, which is why there's been a flurry of statements and actions over the last 24 hours. Iran rules out direct talks with the U.S. on nuclear issues, and then puts its forces on the highest state of alert because it fears an imminent attack on its nuclear sites, boasting defenses and placing forces around those locations, including secret facilities. Tehran warns a U.S.-Israel attack could threaten the regime's survival. That is fascinating, but it is also indicative of, well, a very high likelihood of war coming again. And I don't know how soon, but I find it interesting that Benjamin Netanyahu was not required to testify because of security matters, so I expect something is going to be happening in the next 72 hours. When we come back from the break, the Russia front, and a whole bunch of good news again from the national front.
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs, Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for U.S.-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy. Grow your business and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
The new Supporting Patriots show on Patriot TV spotlights great Patriot-owned companies and introduces them to Patriot consumers, encouraging them to buy American-made. If you're an America-loving patriot that owns and operates his or her own business, and you have Made in America products or services, you're the perfect candidate to be interviewed on the Supporting Patriots show. If you'd like to be considered for an interview, email us at supportingpatriots@patriot.tv.
And we're back with the Russia front. The Ukrainian parliament passed a resolution affirming President Zelensky's legitimacy and the constitutionally mandated requirement that keeps him in power through the duration of the war due to martial law. 268 MPs supported the resolution. 225 were needed for a majority. This is clearly an attempt to throw in Trump's face some of the comments that were made earlier last week. Trump: Ukraine will have enough weapons to continue fighting until the U.S. and Russia reach an agreement to settle the war. That's the mineral deal. And it sounds like Zelensky will be at the White House on Friday to sign that mineral deal. Trump said that $350 billion, military equipment, and the right to fight on were the bargaining chips in that deal, and that will, in fact, happen this Friday. Also, coming to us from globalsecurity.org, a Russian defector has leaked files revealing the shocking scale of war casualties. By contrast to Ukrainian casualties, Russian casualties killed or wounded exceed 700,000, according to Western estimates in December. But according to this, the analysis records 165,584 unique entries, names, ranks, and dates of admission. So there is some confirmation to the idea that 172,000 Russian soldiers have been killed, with approximately 611,000 wounded. So that seems to be confirmed independently by a Russian defector. Either way, Trump is absolutely right. The killing needs to stop. Britain has fallen in line with Trump's demands and will increase military spending and cut foreign aid. I am seeing some changes in people's body language as they meet President Trump, including the French president as well. That brings us now to the national front. Leaked. Here are CIA officials celebrating. Now, I want you to see this. These are CIA officials celebrating the death of Christian leader Pat Robertson. A recurring theme in NSA chat rooms: hatred against Christians, conservatives, Italians, and heterosexuals. It's interesting that Italians got called out. To my Italian friends who own the winery, pay attention to this article. One intelligence officer even cast aspersions on his own grandmother. Well, this didn't go unanswered. Now, a memo has been sent out by Tulsi Gabbard, and we'll get to that here in a second, to require everyone that has been involved in those chat rooms to be identified. Blackwater founder Eric Prince has offered to privatize mass deportations for the White House. His proposal includes using processing camps, a fleet of 100 planes, and an army of private citizens to find and remove illegals. The offer carries a price tag of $25 billion, or cheaper, and it would be probably even for the government to do it. Trump says the U.S. will sell $5 million, quote, gold cards to foreigners, and he calls it green card privileges plus. Somewhat like a green card, but at a higher level of sophistication. It's a road to citizenship for people, and essentially people of wealth or people of great talent, Trump said at the Oval Office. There's a new sheriff in town, and every day it just gets more interesting. Trump on Canada becoming part of the USA, quote, a lot of people in Canada are liking becoming our beautiful, cherished 51st state, end quote. Now, I know there are some people that listen to Patriot Radio in British Columbia and Alberta. And if you're one of them, please DM us or contact us privately. I would like to hear the story of what you think and what the people on the ground there think as well, because clearly the mainstream media up in Canada is backing Trudeau, and I just can't believe that Fidelito would really be that popular up there. Here's the memo from Tulsi Gabbard. We know who they are. Action is underway. So Tulsi Gabbard sent this memo directing all intelligence agencies to identify employees who participated in the NSA's obscene, pornographic, and sexually explicit chat rooms and to terminate their employment and revoke their security clearances. Deadline, Friday. Now that's real leadership. You know, some people think real leadership like that is heavy-handed, but I think they miss the point that the Holy Spirit actually can be heavy-handed there as well when righteousness is concerned. And the fact of the matter is that the corruption inside the government needs to be cleaned up, just like the corruption in our local cities and businesses and churches needs to be cleaned up as well. J. Michael Waller, if you hire armies of emotionally disturbed, mentally ill, resentful, toxic, self-absorbed, perverted lunatics as intelligence officers, you are creating the conditions for an avalanche of mass treason when they stop getting their way. What is he talking about? According to CNN, deep state bureaucrats threaten to sell state secrets if Trump isn't nice to them. In other words, they are threatening treason. It looks like we might need to have some trials regarding treason coming soon, if that's the case, so that this never happens again. According to Byron Donalds, Democrats are flailing over Musk and Doge. But in 2023, Joe Biden gave 53 unpaid researchers and student volunteers access to the same system in the IRS. And yet, nobody said anything about that. Great point, Byron Donalds. The Department of Veterans Affairs has just fired another 1,400 employees. They've now fired close to 2,400 people in the last 2 weeks. The job cuts will allow more than $100 million each year to be redirected toward veterans' health care, benefits, and services. Amen. And this technique of firing mid-level management and upper-level management that is not productive is something that actually goes back decades from some of the first audits that were ever really done in the modern times of government. That's where a lot of the money is wasted. And some people are thinking it's going to affect services on the ground, but the fact of the matter is you could cut 50% of the government and no services on the ground be affected. None. Zero. And that's where I think people, get scared, and the Democrat fear machine tries to come after folks and play on their fears. But the fact of the matter is a lot of these people really don't do much, which is why that email that Elon Musk sent out asking for 5 things people did this last week caused so much consternation because, well, they had our time probably naming 1 or 2. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announces she has found the ICE raid leakers and is firing them. They will be fired. There will be consequences, quote unquote. And that's about time. The Epstein and JFK files were blocked. This is fascinating. Anna Paulina Luna calls out AG Pam Bondi allegedly stonewalling the release of the Epstein list and JFK files. That's not exactly it. They are on Pam Bondi's desk. And part of the reason this takes so long is because the files are so extensive. Everybody needs to dial it back just a little bit and be patient. But interestingly enough, the Secret Service agent who leapt onto the JFK motorcade during the assassination, Clint Hill, dies at 87. Now, when she reached back there, she also grabbed a part of JFK's skull, which is probably the most definitive evidence, at least in my opinion, of a second shooter. And for most people that have ever been in combat or ever seen those types of wounds, it's very clear that there were multiple people involved. And we may find out and this is probably why there has been so much attacking and stonewalling of these files, more than just the Kennedy assassination had multiple people involved. The first round of documents that came out, there was a file, we profiled it here on Patriot Radio, that showed Adolf Hitler, according to a CIA report, was in South America in like 1969. And that was in the JFK file. Obviously controversial. Obviously they stuck it in there because it would be lost in there for years. But I expect that there's going to be some interesting things coming out, just like there was the first time, if people are paying attention. And if you never heard about that, go look it up. In fact, there was a picture of him. Trump suspends security clearances for law firm employees tied to Jack Smith's prosecutions. Pro bono attorneys work at the Covington and Burling LLP law firm, which has an office in Washington, D.C. He signed that executive order today. Yeah, and there needs to be more of this. The security clearance system has been completely abused and needs to be reformed. No question. Trump administration unveils new stricter performance appraisal system. Well, this is going to have people smiling. For top career officials, top career civil service managers will no longer be judged within rules that allow almost everybody to rate highest. They'll actually be rated on their performance. The Office of Management and Budget and the Office of Personnel Management are set to introduce these comprehensive set of reforms to appraise performance of top echelon career executives. There are more than 7,000 members of the federal government's senior executive service, which represents the highest level of career management authority in civil service. Quote, this new government-wide SES performance appraisal system and performance plan will deliver enhanced accountability and help restore government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And all I can really say to that is amen. Kash Patel, who was confirmed as FBI director and now has joined forces with Dan Bongino as well, has launched an investigation into James Comey's secret honeypot operation involving 2 undercover agents who targeted Trump in that 2016 campaign. 2 female undercover agents who targeted Trump's 2016 campaign will be investigated as part of this. It was revealed last October that, according to an FBI whistleblower, former Director James Comey inserted those 2 female agents into the Trump campaign in 2016. And this was a, quote, off the books, end quote, operation, and was separate from Comey and Obama's Crossfire Hurricane operation. I wonder what else we're going to discover. I wonder how much else has been fabricated and ginned up over the years. Also, 5 members of the Democrat Party, 5 members of the Democrat Party, 5 members of the Democrat Party in Bridgeport, Connecticut and Philadelphia have been criminally charged with numerous counts of voter fraud at both the state and federal levels regarding what? Oh, mail-in ballots. There you go. They're the facts. Share those with your friends and family. And lastly, a Veteran Affairs whistleblower exposes religious persecution. FOIA data unveils a calculated assault on faith-based rights. Now, we heard about the attack in the NSA chat rooms against Christians. And now, a combat veteran, Sonny Fleeman, and federal whistleblower, once considered his role at the Department of Veteran Affairs to be a sacred extension of his service that helped secure benefits for fellow veterans. But after discovering that he and other employees were targeted for their faith-based rights, the claims raider is now beginning to question his calling. I want you to hear that. There were elements in the federal government who were intentionally persecuting Christians. It is now a matter of fact that this has happened across the federal government under the Biden regime. All of those people who said that Christians were not persecuted, well, the question should be now to you, do we really have a government that doesn't have an established religion? Perhaps that established religion was atheism. Perhaps that established religion required the persecution of Christians and people were just following their belief system. So when people say you can't legislate morality, all legislation has a moral basis. The question is whose. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And if we go back in the history of Christianity, we know that we were founded on principles in the Bible, and even Thomas Jefferson said that in the Declaration of Independence when he quoted Sir William Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England. And he talked about the law of nature. Nature's God is revealed through Holy Scripture, and the law of nature is God's truth written into creation, and science is the method by which we discover that truth. So even Thomas Jefferson recognized that God has his hand in America, and we founded our system on eternal truths. And that's the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. When we come back from the break, Bill Jasper from The New American.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
We're back with Bill Jasper, the senior editor of the New American Magazine, a rabid anti-communist. He's been exposing the communist and globalist conspiracy for many, many years. And now we're going to be talking about the Panama Canal and some local violence that happened here recently that he was a witness to. Bill, it's great to have you back on Patriot Radio. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you, Matt. Always a pleasure.
So let's talk first about the Panama Canal. A lot of back and forth of whether the U.S. can actually enforce its treaty rights. Do we have the right to call them out on the Chinese influence that is down there and really hasn't been fully removed? It's just kind of the veneer that's been removed. You were around actually when this first started, so if you could, give a primer.
Yeah, so folks that are in their 60s and 70s may recall the battle, fierce battle, ferocious battle that took place in the 1970s. And it actually began under the Republican administration of Richard Nixon. And Henry Kissinger, who is a villain in so much of the globalist efforts to destroy American sovereignty, was the one who really kicked it off. But then it got going during the Carter administration. And in 1976, 77, that's when the battle really reached its climax for the globalists and their communist allies urging the United States to turn over the canal, our canal. It's not the Panama Canal. We refer to it as the Panama Canal, but it's the United States Canal in Panama. We bought the property, the canal zone, just like we bought other territories, the Louisiana Purchase, the Oregon Purchase, the Gadsden Purchase, Alaska Purchase, etc. And we own the Panama Canal just like we own Hawaii and Alaska. and all the rest of the U.S. states and territories. It's sovereign U.S. territory. We did that in 1903 with the Hay-Buenaventura Treaty. And we paid Panama for it. We paid Colombia for it. We paid the individual Panamanian private citizens for and they wanted it. Because they wanted you're very familiar where you are in Eastern Washington, just like the people in Eastern Oregon, Northern and Eastern California were fed up with the corrupt control of the government in the capitals. It was the same thing in Colombia at that time. The people in Panama were being taken advantage of, and they said, hey, we want to be our own independent country. They became independent. They signed a treaty with us. We also paid not only for all of that property and for the individual property owners, and then we paid the government of Panama $10 million, paid them $250,000 a year. This is back when a dollar meant something. And then we paid the French company of Ferdinand de Lesseps and the French investors who had tried to build a canal there and hadn't been able to do that. We paid them, I think, $40 million back in the day when that really meant something.
So you're saying that the French, Bill, the French we had to bail them out.
Right. So, Ferdinand de Lesseps was a hero back then in the 1880s because he had accomplished the amazing feat of building the Suez Canal. And that had enormous challenges going through the desert there and through creating that waterway. But the Panama Canal, going through Panama, creating a canal there was far more than he was able to do, both the geographical and the weather, and particularly the malaria and yellow fever, which killed thousands of people, of the French workers and the workers they brought in there. And it was the same with the American experience there. We had to overcome all of those things. So we paid a huge price in blood and treasure and accomplished something that has redounded to all the people of the world. The commerce from all over the world has benefited from that. So, but the nub of the issue here hasn't really been mentioned by President Trump. He has done an amazing thing, which few of us thought he was going to do when he said we need to take back the Panama Canal. But the key issue that he hasn't really broached yet, and we're hoping that he will, is that these treaties that were signed under President Carter in 1977 are not valid on a number of different counts. But the most fundamental thing, and you being an attorney would recognize this, and certainly people who are international law and international treaty experts pointed this out. The basic flaw in the whole argument about the transfer of the canal is that both parties have to sign the same treaty. Of course, in any kind of contract, you have to be signing, you have to come to a meeting of the minds. You have to agree on it, then you sign the exact agreement. So we had here in 1977, President Carter had just come in. As with Joe Biden, Jimmy Carter was not running the Carter administration. He had brought in all these Trilateral Commission members, and he had them running just like Joe Biden. So he had all these globalists running it, and they were a continuation of the Kissinger and Saul Linowitz negotiations earlier. Saul Linowitz was another globalist Council on Foreign Relations member, and he was working for the Rockefeller family and the Chase Manhattan Bank and Marine Midland Bank, of which he was a director. So they formulated this treaty, and Americans were overwhelmingly opposed to it. They said, no, this is our canal. This is essential to our national defense, our national security. We can't afford to give it up. What would happen if a foreign power took it over, a hostile regime, hostile to the United States? So how to overcome this? Well, Jimmy Carter's advisors, Harold Brown, and the rest of his cabinet, and Saul Linowitz decided, okay, well, we have to come up with protective cover for the senators, particularly the Democratic senators that didn't want to be tagged with having given away our key strategic waterway. So how are we going to do this? Okay, Dennis DeConcini, the senator for Arizona, Democrat, put forward a reservation known as the DeConcini Reservation. And it said, if the United States determines that the Panama Canal is under threat, that its security is at stake, that we, the United States, can send in military forces and forcibly take it over without the permission of Panama. Well, that seemed to solve it for a lot of these Democrats. Then they could say, okay, well, I can vote for it because, see, we have an assurance that nothing bad can happen because we can move in there and take it over. The problem was that Omar Torrijos, the communist dictator of Panama, did not accept that. And so that is not in their treaty. He did not sign that. So we signed two different treaties. And it's and so how did this happen that it wasn't exposed? Well, you and I both know, everyone has seen what's happened with the fake news media over the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Back then, we didn't have an internet. We didn't have any alternative media. We were exposing it. Senator Jesse Helms was exposing it. Senator Strom Thurmond was exposing it. But the media, the Mockingbird media, the controlled globalist media, completely silenced it and said, okay, everything's fine. And amazingly, it has still remained largely unknown up until this day. And so you had up on the screen earlier an article that we had from the New American Magazine by then Congresswoman Helen Chenoweth from my home state of Idaho, in fact, from my hometown of Orofino, Idaho. And she was a good friend of mine. I grew up working in her husband's construction company. My sisters babysat their kids. So they were friends of the family. But she was a hardcore patriot. And she took up the cause, and she put forward a resolution in the U.S. House of Representatives, putting forward the main key points that I just discussed about the DeConcini Reservation. But there were also other things, even if the treaties had been valid. So they're not valid because we didn't sign the same treaties. But even within the context of the treaties, and President Trump has mentioned this at least once, that the treaty says that only Panama may operate the canal and the canal zone, and they have turned it over to communist China. And so we have China controlling both sides of the Panama Canal, and the Atlantic. And not only that, but controlling the military installations and facilities within the canal zone, again, verboten in the treaty, and operating the canal locks and the canal tugboats, the pilot boats that bring the ships through there. So, I mean, this is unacceptable. One of the other articles that we have on our website that you showed there is by Admiral Thomas Moorer. The late Admiral Thomas Moorer, former chairman of the Chiefs of Staff, wonderful gentleman, wonderful patriot. He was the only aviator to get his plane off the ground at Pearl Harbor. And he worked very closely. I worked with him in Washington, walked the halls of Congress with him on this issue, interviewed him several times for our magazine and for media. And Congresswoman Helen Chenoweth, Senator Jesse Helms, Senator Strom, but most of the Republicans and Democrats didn't want to fight this battle. They caved into the media. It was before the Trump era, and people weren't willing to tackle the media stranglehold.
Well, when we come back from the break, Bill Jasper, the New American Magazine, thenewamerican.com, we're going to talk about what we can do now to unwind what's happened with the Panama Canal and also what happened locally in Idaho.
American business owners, you understand the power of TV. If you have a product that you want to sell to millions of like-minded Americans who value quality, hard work, and supporting the red, white, and blue, Supporting Patriots is the perfect place. If you're ready to bring your product to a patriotic audience eager to buy American, then contact us today at supportingpatriots.com and secure your spot on Supporting Patriots. Let's build a stronger economy. When we buy American, we support our future.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with Bill Jasper, senior editor of the New American Magazine. So, Bill, the Panama Canal Treaty isn't even the same treaty that was agreed to by the Senate. Not the same treaty that he signed down there. Also, we have Chinese operating down there, clear violation of the treaty if you take it at face value. How does Trump unwind this without sending U.S. troops? I mean, it only took 3 days last time in 1989, but how does Trump unwind this without sending U.S. troops down there to occupy it?
Well, it may require sending U.S. troops down. In fact, I believe it probably will, and that should not be a deterrent. We should never take those kind of measures lightly, but if we wait until China or other actors sabotage the locks or fortify the area so that we then have to go in and militarily fight someone, that is a much dicier issue. And in fact, in those circumstances, expect that the canal would be incapacitated, and that would have huge impact on our military readiness. During the Korean War, during the Vietnam War, and many conflicts since then, our aircraft carriers don't go through the canal, but all of the support and logistics and supply ships do. And exactly. We have the largest air support, but that is not sufficient to carry out operations, particularly in a two-theater war. So we need the naval ability to do this, and the whole world needs a Panama Canal that is functioning. Now, another thing that I didn't mention, but is one of the huge flaws in the Canal treaties. There were two treaties. One of them is the Neutrality Treaty, and that in itself should have scotched the deal. You can't have a neutrality treaty as we had with them, which says that Panama has to keep complete neutrality. That means that in a time of war, where we're in war with Russia, China, or whomever, if China's ships are wanting to go through the canal, they have an equal passage right as we do, and we have to get in line behind them. That's unacceptable. We built a canal, we paid for it, it was our territory, it is our sovereign territory, and we need to take it back. So we have an indication of the way things might go just from Marco Rubio's trip down to Panama at
right.
Trump's behest. I mean, very short order, Panama went from being very belligerent to saying, okay, we'll nix our deal with China. Our memorandum of understanding with Beijing is up here in a matter of weeks or months. We'll cancel that. So that's an indication, Panama does not have the ability to keep us out. It would not require a massive armed intervention for us to go in there. And yes, there will be the obvious demonstrators against it all across the country and in parts of Latin America, whatnot. However, my understanding, particularly of the Panamanians that I know and have been in contact with, many of them for decades, want the United States back in there. The corrupt government under Torrijos and then Noriega and then the younger Torrijos and the current government is really intolerable. There is no freedom there. They have no freedom of political expression. So they want to have the United States back there. Plus, while we were there, Panama was the most prosperous nation in Latin America, and the per capita income was the highest. Now the government is largely a toadying tool of communist China.
That's right. I want to shift gears so we don't run out of time. About 3 minutes, Bill. Yesterday, we had multiple reports of Antifa scouts in downtown Spokane. These were verified. And it seems like there is a lot more Marxist rhetoric that's violent that's coming onto the internet right now. And then I hear about this incident in Idaho, which you were there as a witness. If you could describe for everybody watching on Patriot Radio and Patriot TV, what happened?
Okay, sure. So on Saturday, this past Saturday, in Coeur d'Alene, at Coeur d'Alene High School, the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, KCRCC, held what they hold regularly 3 or 4 times a year, the legislative town hall. And what they do is invite all of the legislators, the representatives and senators for Northern Idaho, to come speak to the voters, tell them what they see happening down in Boise at the Capitol, and to take questions. And so that was happening. There were 9 or 10 legislators there. Just about everybody from Northern Idaho was there. We knew when we went into it that this was going to be something different. The rhinos and the Democrats had announced they were going to come and disrupt things, and they did. And so I was there ringside, 10 feet away from where the action was happening. I was just sitting there. My wife and other friends were there to listen to the legislators, but some of the usual Antifa type agitators showed up. They placed themselves throughout the audience. I saw it right when I came in because I had been undercover in communist organizations going clear back to the 70s and 80s, as their typical method of stirring up agitation. So as the program started, it was announced that this was a private organization, KCRCC, and that there would be questions after the legislators spoke, but that interruptions and disruptions would not be tolerated. And so very soon after the meeting started, they started yelling, started screaming, calling out profanity, etc. And after a while, they were told multiple times to desist, not to do it. They would be removed. They'd be forcibly removed. And one of the key agitators, when she walked in front of the main camera that was there, she flipped her hair up in her typical way of defiance, announcing that she was going to cause a scene there. And she went and sat down. She was one of those who kept getting up and shouting and screaming. She has done this in public meetings throughout the county here. So anyway, after this had gotten on, they all started erupting so that the legislators couldn't talk. You couldn't hear them. They said, okay, you're going to be arrested. They started to arrest them. Then they did the typical communist tactics. They laid down on the ground and pretended that they were being brutalized and made them drag them out. And the way it's been portrayed in the media is that this is some violent right wing forces within the Republican Party who are violating the First Amendment rights of these people who just wanted to come and talk to the legislators and express themselves. And so this is going to be litigated now, of course. And there are videos there on the KCRCC website, or rather their Facebook page, where you can see for yourself what is really happening, and not the cropped videos and footage that have given the narrative of the poor leftists being suppressed.
And this is the template I think all of America needs to understand, as they will always try to play the victim like that. But video cameras very much help to bring the truth out. Bill Jasper, thanks for... There are a lot of video there, so you can see for yourself. Bill Jasper, thanks for joining me on Patriot Radio again. Really appreciate everything you're doing. As always, great insight that nobody else is talking about regarding the Panama Canal. Keep up the fight.
Thank you.
Bill Jasper, senior editor of The New American Magazine, thenewamerican.com. So what can you do? Well, here's what you can do. You're going to share the clip from this show. We're going to clip his answer there regarding the treaty in the Panama Canal, because I don't hear anybody talking about this right now, and you're going to share it as far and wide as possible. That's what you can do. So we can educate people that the treaty that was approved by the Senate wasn't even the treaty that the Panamanians signed. That's, I think, pretty important, don't you? So let's get that information out there and watch it go to the highest levels of this country and change things and actually put the narrative right on track for truth. Also, what you can do is you can talk to your friends and family about this uptick now in violent Marxist rhetoric across the United States, and the fact that even in our own communities, there are Antifa cells. They're just waiting. They're timing for unrest here coming up in the future, normally surrounding May Day. So this isn't something we want to ignore, but this is something we want to come together, pray against. This is something we want to expose, because we need to resist evil and the devil will flee. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. Keep up the fight.